Before we give the vote of thanks, we need to close out this festival with a call to action. We need to close out this festival with some words of encouragement by senior colleagues in the movement. And I'm speaking slowly so that I can see Brian, if I can see Brian coming into the Sankofa. If anybody has seen Brian or is holding him in court, please release Brian Tamuka Kagoro right now. But the reason why we always have these sessions when we have convenings is to ensure that we don't just come, we talk, we interact, and we leave without really wrapping up. That is un-African. The same way we were reminded this morning by Comrade Amara Enya that the African thing about greeting is not just a gesture, it is a ritual. That's the same way saying goodbye or wrapping up or thanking people is truly African. So in a very Pan-African way, we're going to wrap up this session. We're going to wrap up this 2 days festival, but the festival continues. The festival will continue outside of Entim Sidai. The festival for reparatory justice will continue outside of Nairobi. The festival for the repair, the reclamation, the reconnection, and the resistance that we are asking for will continue outside of Kenya and will continue even outside of Africa. So to remind us of that continuum, to remind us of the imperative for us to take this personally, to take the issue of reparatory justice personally and collectively, I'm honored to invite a senior comrade, a senior mentor of us, for many of us here. I have many people who send me on errands. I think I've been telling people already that I have so many people who send me on errands. I'm the errand boy of the movement. And one of the principal people who sends me on errands is this person I'm privileged to introduce and welcome to give us the closeout keynote. For several years, so those of us who have been in the Pan-African movement, I started my journey at age 11. We've been in this space, getting instructions, getting directions, getting guidance. We have convenings. There are certain times when it's in the middle of the night that we decide on what to do and where to hold sessions. A few weeks ago, I sent a WhatsApp message to a senior comrade. I said, comrade, we need you in Nairobi. We have our own ways of calling each other because we are all leaders, right? And this senior comrade calls me leadership, and I call him leadership. So I said, leadership, we need you in Nairobi, and we want you to give us the call to action after we end the festival. And that was it. There was no protocol. As Amara said, we often die with 1,000 protocols. Within the comradeship, there's no protocol. And that's because we believe in relations, we believe in continuation of generational action. And I want to use this opportunity to thank this leadership and this senior comrade. Please, comrades, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming Tamuka Kagoro to give us the clonate outside. Brian often says that the reason why he's in this size is because he's been eating the problems of Africa. So please, let's give him a bigger applause that actually matches the problems of Africa and the solutions that we are planning to get.
Thank you. Mark Mead. Why don't we give Mark Mead, Lillian, the organizers are phenomenal. We had an amazing group of speakers, panelists. I listened to Yvonne. I was sitting in the back there. Then this afternoon when I was listening, I was rocking on the chair there. And so every time I hear something, I think of a song. So can you imagine when I was what song I was thinking about when I was rocking on the chair when these guys were talking, huh? Don't worry, I don't have a written speech, so don't. I have to open this because when people in my house see this, they have to believe that I had something written down so that I don't embarrass them. Chattel enslavement, colonialism, apartheid, and neocolonialism were different manifestations of racial capitalism. And they had certain continuities. Those continuities they were all premised on the idea of dehumanization, devaluation of the lives of Africans and of all nature-based assets that were in territories of black and brown people. The devaluation of labor, the devaluation of intellectual endeavor, the devaluation of beauty, the devaluation of cuisine, the devaluation of faith, the devaluation of scholarship, and so persistently the conceptions of faith and spirituality, of commerce, and of civilization were premised on criminal atrocities that were sustained on three beliefs. For chattel enslavement, of course, you've heard me say this, you had to pass a law in Barbados, repeated in Virginia, repeated throughout the colonies that said slaves were not fully human. And within the colonial moment, even after the abolition of chattel enslavement, the idea was that the native was not fully human. And in a judgment of the British Privy Council in June of 1918, determining a case with respect to ownership in the then Southern Rhodesia, now called Zimbabwe, the British highest court ruled that the native has no sense or understanding of ownership, that therefore the territory and the assets on and beneath the ground where they reside cannot belong to them because they are not civilized like us. So my friends, law and institutions became tools of and for legitimating terrorism, racism, dispossession, dehumanization, and the atrocities that you've been talking about. Such that when they take Brian Kagoro and they go and train him in the finest law schools in France or in the United Kingdom or in the United States, they are producing a refined native who must, in order to become an outstanding jurist, first deny the humanity of his own people, the cogency and meaningfulness of his own people's customs and laws and traditions, deny his own religion and civility and the contribution of his own people through arts, through craft, through culture and heritage to that civilization. Because, oh, poor Brian, poor Peter, poor Judith. In the teaching that Judith and Brian receive, they did not learn of the atrocity of chattel enslavement or of colonialism or apartheid. Such that when they go to Rio de Janeiro or they go to Cape Town in South Africa or Johannesburg or they're in Windhoek or they walk through Nairobi, they are bedazzled by high-rise buildings, escalators and lifts, by shopping malls, and blinded from the fact that in essence, the so-called beauty and outcomes of this colonial architecture is a crime scene that hides the sweat, the blood, and the bodies of men and women who were abused in order to build Washington, D.C. So they go and take pictures in France, in Brussels, totally beguiled. And the native begins to embrace his or her own inferiority because we do not have Brussels. We do not have Rio de Janeiro. We don't have Paris. So the native steals money from government, from their NGO, from wherever, in order to go to Paris, the crime scene where your ancestors. So the native, especially the elite and educated native, does not need to be in government in order to be a victim of the continuity of coloniality of power, both in logic, in perception, in vision, and conception, not only of self, but of the collective. The German philosopher Hegel, who is often associated with the moment when Karl Marx emerged, writes, and it was accepted professor in scholarship then, he says, Africa is no place of history. It's not an interesting place. And then he continues, the African or the native is in everything else except vice and corruption and infant. So not only is the native not fully human, not only does the native not have any sense of ownership, but the native is an infant. Once you infantilize the native is unable to reason at the same level as we do, unable to create at the same level as we do, unable to govern at the same level that we do, unable to exercise any form of agency at the same level that we do. The native must be chaperoned like a little baby. They need the nanification. That nanification comes from donor agencies. Nanification comes from Then, of course, the reality is that whether you're talking about enslavement, colonialism, or apartheid, they enforced the production of three things: economies, institutions, laws, and policies that produced this bifurcation of citizenship, the civilized and the uncivilized. And the civilized was one who approximated the culture of those that oppressed them, the literate practices, the analytical lens, the nomenclature, the etiquette, the cuisine, and the fashion. So Africans spent a lot of time learning how to use fork and knife, how to sit properly, how to be a gentleman. You know, I actually believed it too until I went to study in the United Kingdom, and they'd been doing this ladies first. And I went into the tube, and I was waiting for ladies first, and I realized the men in the United Kingdom didn't get the memo. They were rushing into the tube before everybody else. So the mythology of civility and civilization constructed in the native a permanent sense of inadequacy, a permanent sense that you are not fully human, you have to do something to graduate to be fully human. So the native, this dual existence, the native who went overseas, like some of us to study, came back feeling that they were the better native, and looked down upon the native who had not gone overseas to study. Because what would make me equal to Comrade Briggs or so-and-so who had not been to Sorbonne, who had not been to Cambridge or Oxford, who had not been to Yale, to Harvard or Oxford. And then the native introduces himself and says, "Hi, I'm I did my master's at Columbia and my PhD, and this becomes a badge of honor for the native, because why is this honor? The native no longer says, I'm from Makerere, Dar es Salaam, University of Zimbabwe, Ahmadu Bello University. The native does not quote Mamadou Diouf. The native has to quote Chaucer. They have to quote some English poet, because why would you be quoting people who come from a known culture? And in the opening of meetings, the native would, in giving definitions, show complexity, whether in church or in an academic conference, by giving a rendition, the Greek definition of the word for philanthropy is phileo, the love for humanity. The native does not know that the reason why they were colonized is that they were essentially a giving people, essentially a kind people. So the native begins to think we need to develop philanthropy, the love for humanity in Africa. Last time I checked, it is not us who invented the term ethnic cleansing. It is not us who did the crusades, killed people for their religion. It is not us who colonized and enslaved people, chopped their limbs if they didn't produce quotas in their own country. It is not us, but the natives somehow must be taught by the same people the love for humanity. The same native whose great-grandmother came from West Africa and taught a white American man how to do what we now call vaccination, how to use the thing that kills you to cure you. Same native now says, our problem is that we are scientifically backward. And yet the same native drinks Chinese herbal tea and has been taught that somehow their own herbs are demonic, but the herbs of the Chinese are... I'm not talking about villagers and people who need to. This idea, therefore, this native, of course, is conflicted because in the development of the colonial state did what is called spatial planning. White folk lived where we are in Karen. Black folk lived in Buruburu, in South B, and elsewhere. Are we together? So not only in education, in religion, but in spatial planning. I'm going to do the call for action, but I needed you to get a sense in spatial, because I heard you saying it's not about money. Go to hell, it is about money. You are the only civilization that thinks that reparation has nothing to do with money. Ask the Germans, why do they need a Marshall Plan? The Marshall Plan was not ribbons around buildings and monuments. It was cash. But it's not only about cash. But so when you introduce reparations, please don't do this native apologia where you start off by saying it's not about money. Money answers many things. I'm tired. Black people love to apologize. In order to be acceptable, we have to explain. This is not just about cash. Why? The Europeans said, where will the money come from? When you were getting it from us, where did it come from? Why does the native function on the basis, first of feeling sorry for their oppressor? Let's talk about your inability to pay. Go to the bank, and the bank has given you a loan, and you have a house and a car, and you go and say, Mr. Manager, it's not about the money. It's difficult these days, as you know, inflation. I'm trying to take my children to school. Please, it's not about the money. And you come back, you will have discovered that money, no money. Do you understand? Please, guys, don't bring into this sector such grandiose rationality. I'm not begging for the money. For those who think we are begging for the money, people say don't demand. All justice is demand. Ask the feminist movement. All justice is demand. I will accept, but I will demand. I can walk and chew gum at the same time. Do you understand? Call to action number 1. Please, you cannot reason in the rationality of the inadequacies or adequacies of a global neoliberal system to determine whether something is practical. If Mandela had done this, it's not about money, it's not about freedom. Where is my sister from South Africa? If the PAC had started and said, well, it's not about, you would not have fought for the liberation of South Africa from apartheid. It was impossible in 1963 to think about liberation. Impossible. Your ancestors who did not have the internet, who did not have the depository and libraries, who didn't have the research and access to information of how much they were being robbed, were still logical enough to say, we're going to fight. Are we together? Guys, listen. All liberation demands are extreme. We get to rationality when we've flexed mutual power. All right? You don't start off with a minimalist position, right? All liberation. Number 2, that what I wanted to say is that how did you then keep the native where they were? Racialized capitalism is a system that was designed to produce the same outcomes no matter the race of the person in charge of the system. So you can if you set up a patriarchal system, you can remove all the men and put 10,000 women. As long as the system is patriarchal in logic, it will produce patriarchal outcomes, right? In the global system of division of labor between our countries and the global north, that is actually institutionalized in the global financial architecture, institutionalized through the debt governance frameworks, institutionalized through the trade frameworks, institutionalized in how we deal with the environment. The outcome will be the same unless we change that system. So how does a local struggle for repair link to? Why did I come to an arts festival? We talk as long as I have talked, and that's how long Haile Selassie talked at the conference. And then Bob Marley took Haile Selassie's 30-minute speech and wrote a song, 3 songs. Africans unite, right? Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Michero Mugo then suggested we need to create the zones of epistemic or intellectual liberation. Call to action number 1. You cannot come in this space and simply worry about we are not yet fully liberated. Harriet Tubman was on a slave plantation when she saw the vision of freedom. So I said the first call to action is how do we fight for freedom partially shackled or shackled? Everyone, Frederick Douglass, everyone, Marcus Garvey, everyone you talked about, the Haitian Revolution did not happen because they were free and they had been to free epistemic schools about liberation. No. The Manchester Conference did not happen because there had been, the nomenclature was right. Liberation is a dialect that we learn through struggle and consistent struggle. When we start to talk about reparations, we don't have the full answers. But each generation, as Fanon says, must discover its mission, fulfill it, or betray it. I'm calling those of you who are young. Number 1, don't tell me how impossible it was. I was in Durban in 2001, a meaningless nobody on the periphery, and I encountered Rastafarians. The Rastafarians are who planted a seed about reparations. The rest of the people in the conference were talking about complicated things. The Rastafarians, and I was only with the Rastafarians because they were the ones with a tolerance for a nobody, right? And the Rastafarians began to tell me about repair. But they also talked about repair from the harm we've done to ourselves and repair from the harm others have done to us. This reparations movement is not a movement that has been kept since 2001 by the likes of us. It was the Rastafarians, it was the indigenous people, It was people who were considered on the margins of society who kept the flame burning. When academics come at this, we come and must come at it with humility. Number one, may we have the farmers back here. May we have the Rastafarians back here. May we have the creatives back here. Bob Marley did not sing many things in 3.5 minutes. In 3.5 minutes and 4 songs, he did. I'm calling on every writer. It is not the length or complexity of what you write. It is the simplicity of the message, its connection and resonance of the people. Number 2, call to action. Our artists have been robbed and robbed and robbed. Robbed by the lack of systems that institutionalize their knowledge, their art craft, everything that our people can do. The creative economy is almost 5% of Kenya's GDP. It will soon be 15%. It's about the same percentage for South Africa, slightly higher now for Nigeria. And if you ask our people who want liberation, they do nothing. And then outsiders come and commercialize Burna Boy and everybody else who's talented, and then determine what lyrics they sing for what market. And the people stop singing for their own liberation. Why? Because they are neglected by the domestic audience, they are neglected by their governments, they are neglected by the petty bourgeoisie, they are neglected by lecturers and academics and NGO folks like you and I. Why? Because when we have a moment to deal with arts and culture, we bring it as entertainment, not as part of discourse on how to institutionalize liberation as a repeated, daily, listened to call to action. So the second starting point is arts and culture will never become a space of liberation as long as you have the same colonial lens to it, which is you undervalue it, number one. Number two, you shun it. Many of our artists that were big, they first got big in Europe. When the Europeans had put a stamp on them, or the Americans, we then embraced them. Shame on you. You are waiting for somebody to make it to Hollywood, to so and so that you say they are ours. Oh, you know, he's from Nigeria, he's from my village. Where were you when that boy was unemployed, trying to earn a living? Look, I worry about governments, but I worry about us. We want governments to do liberation. We ourselves don't do any liberation. In your offices, how many books from local authors are there? From African publishing houses, how many? In your office here, how many? How many paintings? How many sculptures? How many artifacts, if you want to call them that? My friends, hypocrisy that thinks we can come here and pontificate to the African Union about how to do liberation, when the decoration in our offices is Picasso and Rembrandt, will not work. If you are a reparations movement at every dimension of your life, cuisine, when we visit you and you are taking us out for food, where do you take us out to? Oh no, we got a brilliant Italian restaurant and a French restaurant. You see, the cancer we are dealing with, McMeet, is a cancer that continues to give money to the privileged, and then when it is full of Italian food, begins to talk, you know, we're losing our indigenous languages. We're losing our... What kind of nonsense is this? Fashion. Nigerian and Ghanaian fashion designers are beginning to get orders from New York, from London, from elsewhere. Now Africans have decided, actually, I may as well order from Nigeria because I saw Rihanna. You are sellouts. You are worse than Moise Chombe. You want to wait for someone in the US to say, oh, it's cool, before you decide it's cool. And then you come to this conference and you talk to me about agency against imperialism, agency against colonial oppression. No, my friend, you are the agent of imperialism and colonial oppression. Because if you can't liberate your value of beauty and good, how can you? So I've talked about knowledge, about food, about stuff. The last thing is about funding. How many young techies are here? You are young techies, you are into tech, right? Please tell them the truth. You are the least supported people. And then every time, because the donors are now talking about artificial intelligence, they call you to a conference and they say, can you talk about AI and social justice? Go to hell. Why do we always wait for somebody else to say something is a mega trend before liberation in the reparations movement is going to be about memory? Say memory. Memory is not going to make us dominate the world or unite from the Caribbean to Latin America. Imagination will. Can I repeat that? The struggle for reparations cannot just be about memory, because atrocity and tragedy has never gotten people to move from outrage to prominence, to agency and leadership. I need you to hear this. Emancipation from mental slavery is not only premised on a cartographical listing or biographical listing of atrocity, and even finding the best solutions for it to be paid for. The best redemption, the redemption song that Bob Marley started that you must complete, is this redemption that says, it was not true that I'm not human. It was not true that I don't have a sense of ownership. It was not true that I don't understand technology. The best redemption is imagination. The next reparations conference should be about how those who dare to imagine the future without denying the past can create a future that's not benchmarking itself against others and former oppressive entities, that begins to celebrate what black people have created, what Africans and Afro-descendants have created, what mixed race people have created in this world in terms of technology, of literature. Last but not least. So I said funding, right? Who finances the thing? How many people actually know how much we spend on banquets in our countries? State banquets. And NGO end of year Christmas party. And personal care. Yeah, self-care. How many? I'll give you a figure. Black contribution to the creative economy globally is sitting at between 5.3 trillion and 8 trillion. That's Africans, Afro-descendants in the Caribbean. In the US alone, Afro-American contribution to the creative economy is about 1.7 trillion. Do you want to know how much of it is in the hands of Africans and Afro-descendants? Do you want to know? Less than 3%. Can I repeat that? All these popular people that you heard that were Africans or Afro-descendants that you were watching on TV, including my sister Whitney Houston, when they died, the value that they controlled of their fame and their creative power was less than 3%. The frontier of reparations is reparative economies, both of the present and of the future. I'm not talking about inclusive development, I'm talking about reparative economies. Reparative economies cannot be anchored on the idea that we describe a problem and don't create the structures, the institutions, and the systems to change it. You cannot change oppression by a system of racial capitalism without having a system of empowerment. Because otherwise, we will have 100 years of outrage at this system. So, Macmead, I have a simple call to action, which is, please, I beg you, when next we do reparative arts and culture, I want us to bring producers, sound engineers, those who do distribution, those who do things. Why? And techies. because the ecosystem and the value chain of repair, we can only demand what we know was robbed, but we can only create what we know is possible. So friends, thank you for coming to this conference. Thank you for allowing Mahmoud to indulge me for more minutes than he had granted me. But thank you for accepting that, having identified the problem elsewhere for the last 2 days, the biggest problem in repair and injustice is you and me, the middle class, who describe this problem as though it is a football match far away, who in our daily lives, in our consumption patterns, in our reading patterns, in the TV we watch, on our TikTok patterns, because we are not paid on TikTok as black people, we do arts for entertainment. Until there's a redemptive economy component of it, it is you and I that are a problem, because we don't value people. We would rather pay for a foreign artist 10 times than we pay for a local. And to all the consultants in the room, this is a political struggle. If you only technically engage it, you will betray the politics of what is the ideology or what is the ideative framework. To all the academic institutions, please stop this beauty pageantry of saying who has the right framework, who doesn't have the right framework, what framework of analysis. You know, my Chinese friend, I told him, I spoke better English than him. We were at some fellowship in a Western school. So one day he got frustrated with me. He says, Brian, your English good, but my economics better. Thank you.
Please give it up, a louder round of applause for Tamuka Brian Kagoro. Thank you very much. Now, I have the unfortunate privilege of speaking after Brian, so I'm going to be very brief. I want to thank you all, but I'll start with thanking our partners. My co-organizers are also ready. I'm going to call on Lillian and Noel to join me up at the stage, and so that we can thank all of you here gathered tonight. I want to start by thanking our partners. And I'll name the partners that we have in the room and those who are not here with us, but who've contributed one way or the other to make this happen. I want to start with Trust Africa. Is Briggs Bomba, Comrade Briggs Bomba in the house? Please give it up for Trust Africa. I want to thank Somo, Audrey Gogran in the room. Please give it up for Somo. I want to thank actually I should mention, I know she's not going to like this, my former boss. I'm going to say. Meghna Abraham, Future Economy Incubator. Please give it up for Meghna and the Future Economy Incubator. Nawi, our colleagues, our comrades from Nawi here. Please give it up for Nawi. Afrodad, Amnesty International, Baraza Media. Thank you all very, very much. There's a long list of other people that we're going to thank. But I don't think I have the authority and the size or the lexicons to do that. So my comrades are going to do that for us. And so I'm going to now invite the phenomenal Lillian Umubiei to thank the other people that we have on our lists. But please, before Lillian says anything, please join me in thanking this phenomenal woman for collaborating with us. Thank you very much. I'll now hand over to Lillian.
Thank you, Mahmoud. Thank you all for being here for this conversation, passionate conversations. It has been in 2 intense days. I would like to thank our colleagues. I will start by my colleagues from African Futures Lab. Hélène. So she's a special round of applause for Hélène because she knows every tiny detail of this festival. Thank you, Geneviève, Cecilia, Lavender, Patrick, I don't know where they are, Daisy, Deborah, Emily, Florence, all these people who have worked tirelessly every weekend, long nights. I would like to thank Kathy. Where are you, Kathy? Please. She's been amazing working on this program, trying to find people. I mean, she's with grace and finesse, and thank you so much, Kathy. I would like to thank Reforms Initiative team, Michael, Sebastian, Rita, Gretchen, Priscilla, Samuel, Wilhelmina. Thank you so much. Thank you for this smooth collaboration. Thank you to the Deep South Solidarity Fund team, to Alex, to Tori, and of course Noel. And thank you to Baraza Media Lab. As Mahmoud said, this festival wouldn't have been possible without the expertise in organizing festivals, the contacts, their very generous support. Special shout out to Lillian. I don't know where she is. And I would like to end by thanking Noel and Mahmoud, partners in crime, mentors, for dreaming with us, with pushing us beyond our ambitions. So thank you for being here.
When Mahmoud and Lillian call you and say they want to do something, it's a mandate. You just can't say no, because it is a necessity. The work they do, the way they think, the people they bring together, it's just all meant to be. So it's an honor. It's an honor to be part of this, go through hours and hours of back and forth conversations, the dreaming and the building. So thank you both so much from the bottom of my heart. And again, I want to ask the teams to stand up now as I name each and every one of you. Elaine, please stand. Genevieve, Lavender, Patrick, Daisy, Emily, Deborah, Cecilia, Catherine. I know some of them are not even present with us, but they've been supporting from wherever they are. Thank you all so much. And the team from Reform Initiatives, Sebastian, Michael, Rita, Gretchen, Samuel, Priscilla, Wilhelmina. Again, some of them are not here, but please thank them, and I thank you. And then from Baraza Media, Maurice is not here, but Lillian is here. Please, Lillian, thank you so much. Thank you for all you have done and for all you all have done. And then nitty-gritty. Can't say enough about Kaguria, Wambui, Ruth, and team. Thank you so much. Thank you. Phenomenal work you have done. And to the staff and leadership of NTIM CDI. Thank you all so much for the space and for accommodating us and for helping us. And now I want to thank each and every one of you for being here. This is not an easy thing to do, to commit your resources of time, energy, willingness, monies, and travel from anywhere and everywhere to be here and to make Wakati Wetu possible. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
We are leaving the stage now. I know you're tired of us. And we're going to invite Angela and Terian to come up the stage. But before we do that, please join me in thanking them with the loudest round of applause. And for those of us who required another language to follow the conversation, please join me in thanking the interpreters. I also want to, for those of you who know me, you know that I don't joke with my food. So for the chef, the kitchen staff, please join me in thanking them. The volunteers, the vendors, I know a lot of people were very busy in those booths. I had to call certain comrades to nudge them to go to the sessions, but they were busy trying to help the economy. Brian has charged us to help our local economy. So to all the vendors, those who came to exhibit, those who came to transact, I want to thank you. Please join me in thanking the vendors. To the Maasai elders who came and blessed us and blessed this event, please join me in thanking them. And finally, to the speakers, the keynote speakers, we had phenomenal keynote speakers. Please join me in thanking Dr. Ashwini, Dr. Yvonne, and the respondent, Dr. Amara Enya. And of course, before I leave the stage, we've all heard from Brian, giving us the final closeout. I want to repeat and reiterate the thanks to Kathy and Dr. Catherine, who interviewed our keynote speaker. Please join me in thanking Dr. Catherine. All the moderators, all the speakers, and for all of you here, please, thank you, thank you, thank you. We will not finish and we will not leave this stage if we continue. And I know people want to dance. I want to dance. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.